Here's to the women who won't settle, the badasses, the rebels, the ones who know they deserve more, those who know how to get their worth, those who refuse to settle for mediocre careers. You can hate them or you can love them, but the one thing you can't do is ignore them. Why? Because you admire them. Welcome to Her Career Talk. I'm your host, Olivia Jaras. Here you'll find the tools, inspiration, and advice to help you take back and stay in control of your career. You see, as a woman, you already have some incredible tools and skills that can be used to your advantage in the workplace. We're here to show you how to use those tools. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, ladies, I am so thrilled with our guest today, Dr. Parker Walsh. Listen, you guys have no idea what's in store for today, and it is going to be so powerful. Carol is, to put it mildly, a catalyst for transformational growth and professional development. I mean, she is a bona fide TEDx speaker. She works with all sorts of clients, but here are just a couple of highlights. And not only is she I think it's 2-time award-winning best-selling author, right, Carol? Mm-hmm. That, unlike on one end, but you have coached Grammy Award winners, Paralympic gold medalists, Fortune 500 executives, and even 7-figure successful professionals and entrepreneurs. Like, you literally coach the top, the cream of the top, mm-hmm. when it comes down to just instigating that massive transformational change when people are like, okay, I'm itching for something bigger and greater. Yeah. So ladies, we are in store for quite a flippin' gift today. Thank you so much for joining us, Carol.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. It's always awesome to be here to talk about this kind of fabulousness and to help women, to really step into another new iteration and a higher level of themselves.
I'm so thrilled because, well, this is what you do, right? This is, you literally, you see people, you're like, you're not living up to your potential. All right, let's step up your game. How cool is that?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. It's what, it took me a while to get here, but it's when you finally kind of hear that calling and hear what you're meant to do in the world, you kind of look at everything that you have done. It helps to really lead you into the path that you really are meant to do. And so I'm just blessed and happy to be here.
How did you actually come about stumbling into this calling of yours, right? What I call this inner genius of yours.
Yeah, it was, I would say it's through the work I did in my doctoral program. And that was an eye-opening and revolutionary process for me. But it was also after that, not too long after that, I was in a massive car accident where I almost was killed. And
I did not know this.
A drunk driver was coming my way. I was heading home. I was working. I had been working in academia, so I was a prof and directing a graduate program. And I was doing my typical thing, working on the weekends, and was heading home, coming up a 2-lane highway. Saw lights coming at me. And, for a moment I'm thinking, are these lights like approaching me? And, is this it? And like literally, it does happen when you think you're about to go. Like all of a sudden your mind like flips and flutters to different events in your life as you think about it. And I, as clear as if somebody was sitting in the car next to me, heard a voice that said, "Turn now." Right? And yes, literally, as if somebody,
Did you recognize that?
I believe it was God, just to be honest. I think it was God, but it was just a strong, like, turn now. And at the time, my options were either to go off on the side of the ravine or to go into oncoming traffic, because literally there was a hill and you drop off. And like for a split second, I thought, like, turn where? But I decided to turn into the oncoming traffic to swerve away. The car hit the passenger side, which caved in and kind of broke the side of my body. So I was in the hospital for almost a month. I had 3 surgeries in a wheelchair for 6 months. It was like life-shattering. And yeah. And that's something, but here's the cool thing about it. Having gone through my doctoral program before, studying gender identity, how women figure out who we are in the world, how we do it in antithesis to the societal messages that are telling us one way to be and how to live. I had went through a divorce before that, so I was in my own kind of journey of rediscovering like who I was. So all of this stuff was bubbling up. And as I was sitting there recovering, it just kept playing back to me, this turn now. And, after I recovered and started going back to work, it stuck with me. And the thing in retrospect that I believe that was the foundational message of what I believe to be true is that many of us, particularly women, hear this little whisper, this little voice that's telling us, you don't really want to do this anymore. You don't like doing this. Why are you doing this? Go do this. You've always wanted to create that or do that or be there or whatever it was. We hear our own versions of turn now, but we don't listen to it. And I'm hard-headed.
Yeah.
And I've always joked that, when God's trying to get my message, he usually has to hit me aside the head because I'm like, yeah, I hear that, but I'm doing my thing. And so what has helped me to understand is that we hear this voice and this message, but what happens is our options, like mine's were, are not optimal. And life's not that way. Life doesn't give us like, here's the glory and here's horrible. So it's easy to make the choice. The choices are never easy. It's usually like, okay, what do I do with these things? But what I knew for sure is that if I didn't turn, the path that I was on would have led to my death. Now, was I hit? Did I have damage? Yes. But I lived and I was able to step into another iteration. So even though the choices may not seem optimal, the clear one that's not the right one is to stay on the path that we're on. And that for me became like the messaging for like, we hear these voices that we have to start listening to them and start exploring what else it is that we want to do. Start looking at the options and start getting the support, the help, the teaching, the learning, whatever it is, to figure out how to choose one of these other paths, because the path that we're on is going to lead to our spiritual, emotional, mental demise.
Depletion. Yeah.
Totally.
That's so true. And that so often happens. Like we get on our own way of progress because it's not a clear path.
Yes.
Right. Like you had that moment where you're like, okay, no, like that's a ravine over there and that's oncoming traffic. I'm going to be screwed either way.
Exactly. Exactly.
What? Like, I think so many times, I think that like using this analogy, seeing that the oncoming driver's not that close, right?
Right.
So you keep going to buy yourself time and think,
yes,
it's not going to happen yet. So I don't have to make this decision yet. But
exactly.
How can you make that decision with enough time? Like how? That's all I can ask. Like, how?
No,
when do you take that step? How does it?
I totally get it. And so, for me, I had to make the decision more in a split second, but it's just what you said earlier. You see the lights coming, right? So the process, the voice starts usually as a whisper, but we ignore it and we stay on the path because we're like, no, those lights aren't coming at me. No, it'll be okay. Somehow or other, I'm not seeing it right, or, maybe it's me, or those type of things. And so what is important to do is that when you start to hear the voice, is that's when you have to start exploring what are the options. That to me is the lesson that I learned, is that you can't wait until the voice is screaming in your head and the lights are right on you. You have to really, as you start seeing something's not right, something's not feeling right, working right, that you have to use that opportunity while there's still that space between this thing coming at you and what you're dealing with right now, to start doing the exploration of what would either of the options bring for you. Right. And so that's the point that you have to start, not when it gets too late. And that's, to me, the biggest message that I talk about with the women that I work with, is that usually they do come to me because they just something's not been sitting well, or something's been, nagging them, right? The typical things, but they stick with it because it looks good, or people think you're crazy for, I mean, when I stopped practicing, I was a lawyer for a lot of years. And when I walked away from being a lawyer, people thought, are you like crazy? And people still are like, why aren't you practicing law? It's law. Look, the money you can make, and you're a lawyer, the prestige of the title. But I'm like, why would I stay down that path when I know it's not going to lead me anywhere? Right, to what I want, to what I'm meant to do, to what I'm able to do. Why would I stay on that path? But that's the thing that keeps us on that path, is that it doesn't make sense. It doesn't feel like societally it makes sense to turn into these other directions that doesn't make sense, right? So let's just stay the course and hopefully it'll work itself out. So when we first see those lights coming at us, right, we first hear that voice in our minds, we first get that uncomfortability, or we get that just feeling of this doesn't sit well, that even though we can't explain it or people telling us just ignore it, we have to listen to it and start exploring what else is out there for us.
So, and it's funny that you say that, because like I hear so many stories, and perhaps even some of my own, that when you try to ignore that voice, which, call it yourself, God, the universe, whatever it is that's telling you like there's something that's not right, eventually you get a massive kick in the butt if you don't listen. Like, It's like, okay, you can do it on your own accord, or I'm gonna have to make you listen, right? And that's when you get this, or you get laid off, or things happen and just as like catastrophically you lose your job. And it's either you kind of go in the uncomfortable but not catastrophic route, or like not super dramatic, or the universe is going to take charge and make it happen for you.
Yeah. That is so true.
It's like,
that is so true.
Pardon my French, but it's a shit show if you wait.
It is. No, totally. Right. And so my like message is, before it goes in that path, like, listen to listen to what's going on, pay attention to what's happening, and start to have these other conversations. The other thing too I talk a lot about is finding your tribe, right? It is so important to find your tribe. And I know like you have the Empowered Society, Empowered, right? Society. And it is so important to be around other like-minded women, or women who are going through something similar, so you don't feel alone or isolated. That is like, to me, the biggest thing. And from a female perspective, from a gender perspective, how we grow and learn and achieve is not a patriarchal, individualized way that we do things. We do things in collaborative communities. And so if we are isolated and alone, we don't have either the strength, the support, the backup, whatever you want to call it, to really help you to propel yourself forward and to see the possibility of what's available for you. You kind of really need that.
Completely agree. And by the way, total shameless plug, ladies, Dr. Carol is going to be in the Empowered Society in a couple of weeks doing an exclusive training. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm fired up about that.
That's going to be amazing. I cannot wait. But I think it's so true, because it's exactly what you're saying. If you can have all of the right tools in the whole world, but if you don't have a community, or like your tribe, as you call it, to help you keep the momentum going, you're going to go nowhere. Like, how many thousands of courses have I signed up with that I didn't even open, or I didn't follow through after the first module, because there's no way to kind of keep that momentum going. And when you've got people who are backing you up and kind of calling you out when you're settling for less, I think that's just so powerful. Like, we're not meant to thrive in isolation.
No, we're not. I mean, we're just by nature not meant to do that. Definitely, we're pack animals. That's how we were always from the beginning of time. But definitely, for women, because we get so many messages, confusing, conflicting, undermining messages, that somehow or other we think that, I like to play with this idea of being the mythology of the strong woman, particularly for Black women. There's this thing like, you're strong, you're tough, you don't need help, right? That's what that means. If I say I'm strong, that means I don't need anybody. But to me, it's a mythology. It's a way to keep us from connecting with other women, empowering other women, supporting other women by coming up with this really kind of patriarchal ideal that I'm strong and tough, which means I could do it alone. And all that serves to do is just to isolate us. Kind of like, the animal kingdom, like we get separated from the herd, and you know what happens when you get separated from the herd? That's the first one that gets taken out. Yeah, it's not exciting. So you really have to be able to have that connection, that community. But, for me, the transformational piece, it starts with giving yourself the time and permission to lean into understanding like your identity, right? So for me, that piece that I always start with is really separating your professional title identity from who you truly are authentically. And we don't give ourselves a lot of room or time to be able to do that. One of the things that I saw years ago, probably 20 years ago now, when I used to do a lot of kind of diversity consulting work, I saw an article in a magazine. I forgot who it was, but it asked the question, what did you leave home when you came to work today? And it has stuck with me forever because I think about how much we have not acknowledged, celebrated the uniqueness of all of who we are. We don't think about it. We're so focused on what we either didn't do, can't do, didn't achieve, mistakes or failures. Yeah, that we don't celebrate and like really understand what are the gifts and geniuses that I do bring to the world. And
that's so true. It's like we never ask ourselves, what do I really want?
No.
What can I? Yeah.
It's so true. I mean, you think about even the school system, like we were raised in school systems that focus on, if you do something well, they're like, yeah, that's great. But if you do something bad, they're like, well, we have to keep going and let's focus on what you didn't do well to improve that, as opposed to let's celebrate and reinforce what you do know and that you do fabulously well. And so we don't give ourselves, particularly fast-paced, ambition, high-achieving women, right, who are always on to the next thing. We don't give ourselves permission to stop and to lean back and ask ourselves the deeper questions of, what do I want? What does excite me? What does bring me passion? Do I even like doing this? Yeah, I'm making the money and the title, and society is applauding me and celebrating me because I have this particular title or this role. But am I really thrilled? Am I feeling fulfilled? Am I really making the contribution that I want to make in the world, that I want to really do? And
that reminds me of a story. And I'm sorry to interject it here, but so I have this one mentor. She's just, she doesn't like to be named, but she's a billionaire, like a bona fide billionaire, one of the wealthiest women on this planet. And she says, you know what? I realized, and now she's retired, she does whatever she wants, but she's like, I realized a little bit too late in the game that I never did what I wanted to do. I always did what I was supposed to do. Wow. Now I'm making up for it. I retired, and I'm thankful that I made it financially, but boy, what would I do to get those years back? Wow. I could use a lot less money and take back those years that I didn't spend with my kids, right? Those years that I didn't do what I wanted to do. And now I'm too old, really. She's like, I'm never really too old, but at the same time, I missed out a lot because I did what I was supposed to do and not what I wanted to do.
I can totally relate to that. I mean, it wasn't until I was on the precipice of my 50th birthday before I decided to do what I wanted to do. So that's a lot of years. That's a lot of years of me following the status quo because that's how we were taught. That's what we were raised to do. I had parents that were like, go to college and you get the job and you stay there till you die. And, you don't change or do anything different. So it takes, it's a challenging thing to push against the status quo and to step into what's right for you. And that's why we need the support in the community to do that, because it's a challenging thing.
Hey there, Lady Olivia here. Listen, I had to interrupt our podcast because I don't know about you, but this COVID-19 thing has me going stir crazy. And indeed, I have a little bit of cabin fever. And this is why I'm doing something, a little bit crazy. I keep hearing about everyone talking about wanting to take back control of their careers in the remaining time of 2020. And I am all about hitting that reset button in 2020. So I'm opening very, very limited spots for personalized review sessions with me. That's your current situation, what you got going on. If you need help pivoting, changing course, reassessing your career, or even if you need advice on starting up your own coaching and consulting firm, that's what I'm going to be here to help you with. And here's how it works. You send me directly an email with everything I need to know about your situation. That is your resume, your job description, LinkedIn profile, write up on what's on your mind, your business strategy, etc. to our inbox at ask@salarycoaching.com. Again, that's ask@salarycoaching.com. And I will personally review your email and every last detail in it and tell you what tweaks you need to make, how to craft your strategy so that you can achieve your dreams and that bigger paycheck, or even show you how to optimize your strategy if you've already kind of started doing whatever it is that you need in order to launch your career or launch your business, but you're feeling a little bit stuck or you need momentum. I'm going to record this on my screen so you can watch and rewatch the video as many times as you need. You can expect to receive a 15 to 20 minute video recording within 1 to 2 weeks of your submission. Basically, the way it works, because of extreme limitations on my schedule, this is not a live coaching call, but this is me giving you a really deep dive into your situation and making sure I cover every last detail within that recording. Now, the cost, just because we're doing this as a way to help you take back control and hit the reset button on 2020, is only $247. We are going to be absolutely selling out of these. In fact, I only think we're going to run this promo for a week or so. But if you hear this in the future, feel free to reach out and see if we're still running this. I don't know that we will, because it's kind of crazy. It's a little bit out of control, and I'm not sure I can take on every single one of these requests. So with that, what kind of questions can you submit? Well, anything. If you're not getting traction with your job search, your resume, you want a review of your LinkedIn profile, you're looking to pivot your career, you want to get back into the workforce, you're overdue for a raise or promotion, you're underpaid and don't know what to do about it, you hate your job but you don't know what to do, or you're absolutely confused as to what you should do with your career. Listen, lady, if any of these apply, or if you want to start your own coaching business, or you are a coach or consultant, but your name is not gaining traction in your field, or you need to completely overhaul your professional brand, I can help you, and I'm here for you. So with that, go ahead, drop us a line, send us all of your details. We will send you an invoice so that we can fast track you in on getting paid what you deserve, doing what you love, and making a difference in this world.
So, like, logistically speaking, how, right, we see the lights, the oncoming lights, okay, we get it, I need to do something. But how do you decide what are those, like, next steps? Where do you take those next baby steps? Where do you start exploring things?
Well, the first thing you have to do, and I know this is going to sound very simplistic, but you have to take
Isn't it usually that way?
It
like
always, it really always is. It really always is. What does it say? The first step to the rest of your life is just that one step forward or something in that nature, like the first step you take. But it really is committing to kind of shutting things out and taking a moment to really reflect and to ask yourself some deeper questions. It really is having, these powerful questions that you really want to ask yourself to start the process of being able to move forward, to seeing that there's a possibility, to digging deeper. I like to call this the kind of architectural dig that I do with my clients, to kind of really get into the nuggets of things that long past that they either ignored or forgot about that really can help inform where they want to go today. And it's really spending the time doing that to get that kind of clarity of self and to hear yourself almost think and to hear what's already been going on in your mind that you either ignored or disregarded, and seeing that, looking at that in front of you and seeing that as the beginning steps to move into the direction that you want to go into. That honestly, that's really the foundation, the first step that you have to really be able to allow yourself to do. And not superficially, because as I say this, again, I work with a lot of like high-end ambitious women. They like, we love checklists. We check that off and like, okay, let's get to what's next, because either we think it has to be bigger than that or harder than that, or we're trying to just get to the finish line. We live in a fast food society, so we want everything quick and have it your way, and it only takes 5 minutes to do anything. But it really, this reflective kind of deep, what I call reflexivity work, requires you, as not just reflective, but this reflexivity is this like kind of leaning in and reflecting back and leaning in and reflecting back. It takes a moment to be able to do that, so that it requires this quieting and to not look at yourself through the lens of what you're doing now, but to really see yourself through a new lens of who you really are.
That's so hard. That's next to impossible in today's day and age.
It's not, it's the only reason it's impossible is because we don't give ourselves room to do it. But it is 1,000% possible. It is 1,000% possible. But you need the room. And let me just say, this is not something that you're going to have to sit on a rock and think about, for like the next 6 months to get there. It really, if you take some concentrated moments in time to like do some writing, ask some deeper questions, answer those questions, it'll reveal to you a lot faster. And as you continue to move through the process, you'll continue getting those revelations. Listen, we live along a lifespan. We are always growing and changing, getting more information, processing that information, and then it comes out in a new way. So we're always going to be in this process. So if we get away from this idea that it is, kind of step 1, step 2, step 3, as opposed to an iterative process that you're constantly going in and out of, then we can embrace this idea that I don't have to have all the answers today, but I'd have the starting place that will allow me to continue to get the answers that will help moving me in the place that I want to move to along the lifespan.
So how do you overcome, because oftentimes, right, it's kind of like what you're saying, it's 2 steps forward, 3 steps back.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. How, aside from community, do you have any other techniques or tools to keep that momentum going when you're not seeing the results, right? Like at least when you see those oncoming lights, right? At least you're like, where you're going, it's not good, but you still perhaps have the hope that maybe that guy like just is going to veer at some point, is going to realize that they're coming on to me. Right. Yeah. While as kind of veering onto oncoming traffic or going off the ravine has very certain outcomes that don't seem appealing, right? At least if you look at those oncoming traffic lights, you think like maybe he's going to shift and move, like, because that's not the right thing to be doing. So I think my question is like, you're going to shift, you're going to pivot into this new direction, but you're always going to face pushback.
Yeah.
At least in my experience, usually the bigger the change, the bigger the pushback.
Absolutely.
How do you regain yourself and regain composure? Like say if you've been laid off recently or you are looking to change and massively pivot your career, it's not going to be easy.
No.
How do you overcome adversity?
Yeah, that is a big question. Right?
Loaded.
Yes. That's no. But for me, it's what I call killing the kryptonite. Right? It's we are all going to go through these challenges and these negative kind of mindset processes that based on stories or narratives that we've developed and heard before, that we have to begin to learn to unpack those and reclaim and rewrite those narratives. But it really is a matter of using what I love as a cognitive behavioral model of just really taking captive your thought. It's really mapping out where the fears and thoughts are coming from, and then being able to run them through kind of an exercise of examining, kind of naming that, seeing where it's coming from, examining where those like thoughts and negative beliefs or sabotaging beliefs, or if it's imposter syndrome, or it's like, I can't possibly do that. all of these kind of negative connotations, like where are they coming from, and then reframing them, examining them, challenging them, and then reframing them into what's possible. And I'm a big component of going back through and looking for examples in your life where you have achieved things, where you have overcome things that you thought were absolutely impossible, and seeing that as evidence that whatever you're facing right now, whether it's a layoff or whether you want to pivot into something new or whether you want to take on a new role or career, that is absolutely something you can do. And then what were the steps that you took to achieve it before, and how can you take those same steps and implement them and apply them now, right? And so that's kind of a process that you would go through to really help you to see that it is possible to step into that. But you have to, shift your thinking around your belief systems that are based on these old narratives and stories that we have built up and told ourselves time and time again, and really put a cog in the wheel and stop that from spinning. Examine those and reframe those stories so that you can see what's really possible for moving forward. Our biggest challenge is what's in between here. It's not so much what's out there.
It's always us, right?
Yeah.
But that brings up another question, is like, because over years these stories have mutated and taken a life of their own, how do you really identify the true source of your fear?
Yeah, well, you examine and ask questions. Where did it come from? Where did you first hear that? Where did you first start believing that? I know I can trace some things back to things, just a comment that my mother said to me, when I was like 8, that permeated this thought process of whether or not I could step into something new, or what people really thought about, my talent, skills, or ability. So if we go back and look through, I have an exercise I call chunks of 10. If you go back to different phases in your life, you can see where those narratives got created, and then to see where they came from, that they probably, for the most part, were not something that you developed, or maybe, you were bullied at school, or a teacher made some offhanded comment, or at some point in your life where this narrative started getting created, so that you can, first of all, see that it's not your narrative, and then you can begin to replace it with something new.
Can we do that when you come do the training in the Empower Society? Like, I want to do that exercise.
Sure.
Oh my gosh. I can't wait to do that. That would be insane.
Yeah.
Great. I love it. So then it's ask yourself, so let me see if I get it straight. When you're in that negative thought pattern, ask yourself, where is this coming from?
Yeah, write it out. See, put it on paper. That's the biggest thing. Get it out of here and get it on paper so that you can actually look at it. All right. It is something, psychological about taking it out and having it in front of you to look at it. But you have to ask yourself, where did it come from? And then you start reflecting on different stages in your life to see what was the origin of this? Like, where is this? Like, why is this true? Who said this to me? What situation was I in, that this became like a truth for me? Is it really true? Has it happened to me? And that process allows you to kind of unfold that, I remember when I was such and such age, or when I was in school, a teacher said this, or one of my girlfriends teased me about this, or something came up that like imprinted this idea that you just built up. It's like a seed was planted at that moment that's become this huge tree that you live off of now. And you have to get back to that so you can cut it down and rebuild and plant a new seed and build a new story.
Now, oftentimes, and this is just completely personal question, but like I oftentimes wake up in the middle of the night, like with some level of anxiety, or like something's worrying me, but I don't really know what's worrying me. So how do you start asking the question when you don't really know what the question is? And like, I personally feel like whenever I wake up in the middle of the night, like problems seem so much bigger than they do during the day. Like it can be something ridiculous, like, oh my gosh, I didn't pack my kid's towel for summer camp. Like something like that just becomes super pressing and super large. Like, how do you deal with this if you don't really know what the true problem is? How do you start asking questions?
Yeah. So most of us act out of feeling, right? Most of us is usually if we feel a certain way, I feel anxious, I feel sad, I feel happy, I feel mad, whatever it is, we tend to act out of that place. So if we start examining the feeling and then start taking it back up to what thought am I thinking that's causing that feeling? Right? That's how we can get to what's really the source of the problem. Right? You know, if I wake up and I'm mad as hell, or I'm angry, or I look at my husband cross-eyed, my new husband, I've been remarried since, but, you know, I have to pull back and say, where is that coming from? Like, what thoughts am I having that's driving this feeling? And it takes a moment. So let me not say this is like, oh, this is simple. It takes a moment. But like I said, I'm a big component of writing it down. So if I'm feeling a certain way, I just start asking myself, what am I thinking that's causing that? Because a thought is always behind a feeling. There's always something we're thinking, right, that causes the feeling. But the feeling has such a high emotional vibration that we live in the feeling without even thinking about where that's coming from. Right? So is it that, you know, I'm starting to beat myself up because, like, man, did I forget something? And so if I'm thinking that I forgot something, am I thinking, man, how careless am I? How unprepared? Like, I'm just not a person that's prepared. I'm not a person that, plans well. I'm lazy. I'm forgetful. You know, like, you start to think about, these are the thoughts that I'm having that's making me feel like uncomfortable or anxious or the case may be. Right. So it's really, once we look at the feelings, is to go back and say, what am I thinking is causing that? Like, where's that coming from? Absolutely.
Okay, I get it. Now, fast forwarding a little bit into, you're doing the introspection, you're realizing the source. How far can it take you? I mean, you've achieved some impressive results with people.
Thank you. It can take you as far as you want to go, because if you can shift your thinking around something and change the energy vibration around it, what you can accomplish is unlimited. Right? It opens the door to so much more, right? I always say confidence is a verb. So it comes through action. So if you shift your thoughts and start acting in a very different manner based on this new way of thinking about what's possible for you, then everything really becomes available to you that you want to do. And then when you, and every time you conquer one set of fears and you rise to another level, guess who appears? A whole nother set. So let me just say, it's why I would always tell people, if you meet someone who says, oh, nothing is fearful for me, I can do anything, they are lying. Don't believe it. What they're telling you, or what they should be saying to you, is that I had a lot of fears that I was able to move beyond, but I'm not even sure what's hanging around the door, and I know I'm going to have to work on some other things as I move forward, or that there's still a few things that, even though I may have mastered, or I know how to keep them at bay, that they still rear their head as I go to another level and another level of what I could possibly do. So, but it's the same tools that you use at every level, but something new presents itself every time that you have to really be able to work through.
Now, tied to that though, like, something that I'm always such a big advocate of is you literally can achieve anything once you overcome what's blocking you.
Mm-hmm.
But people are always like skeptical of saying, like, of truly believing that. They're like, that's a little too woo-woo. That's just a little too out there. So for the ladies, would you mind explaining it in your own words? Like, how is this even possible? How can you do this? Because I know they're sick and tired of hearing me say that and preach that all freaking day long. But can they hear it from a fellow expert here?
Absolutely. Listen, I always like to say, what you think about, you bring about, right? So there is this theoretical concept of a self-fulfilling prophecy that if you don't believe you can achieve something, if you stay in a space that this is not going to work for me, it's not going to be possible, you are going to bring that reality your way. And so it really is about mastering your thought process so that you can begin to see and begin to move into spaces that allows you to accomplish what you want to accomplish. When you think you can do something amazing, guess what? The universe and the world says, been waiting on you all day. So I'm ready to hand it to you. I'm ready to deliver it to you, because you can't get what you're not ready to receive, if that makes sense, right? So if you are in a place where this won't work for me, it's not going to come your way because you're not ready to handle it, right? You can't say, I want this, but I don't think it's going to happen, because then the universe is like, well, then why would I give it to you? Because you wouldn't know what to do with it. You wouldn't know how to handle it. So you absolutely can achieve what you want to have. If you want that promotion, if you want this other job, if you want that, 6-figure bonus, if you, want to move into the C-suite, it is 1,000% possible for you. But if you don't fundamentally check that narrative and believe that it can absolutely happen for you, then it's just a matter of getting the skills, the training, the support that you need to make it happen. But if you don't believe it will happen, it absolutely won't happen. And that has happened in every stage of my life. When I started my business, I was like, should I really do this? Am I abandoning my children? Am I setting the wrong example? But now I have a thriving business. When I thought about certain income levels I would make in my business, every time I set one, I thought that's crazy. But then when I really thought about, is it really possible? I not only would hit that, but I would go beyond it. So every time, and this is what I'm saying about every time you reach another level, you're going to have another block that you have to be able to work yourself through it. But a lot of it comes from the stories that we tell ourselves about and the narratives that were fed to us that we're holding on to as our truths. And we have to begin to dismantle those and start recreating and rewriting a new narrative that says what we want it to say, so that we can move and walk in that path in our life.
That's amazing. Carol, thank you so much for joining us. Now, can you tell us about your books, courses, what have you? Tell us, how can the ladies kind of reach you, find out about what you're doing?
Yes.
Keep telling
Yes. Well, you can always find what's happening with me at my website at carolparkerwalsh.com. And so I have workshops and resources and things that you can always tap into. I have actually a training that I'm doing coming up soon about navigating organizational culture and how to, really understand how to understand yourself and how to read what an organization is about, so you can see about a good fit. I have that coming up actually this weekend. I'm doing another workshop. I'm doing one every month. So I'm doing another one September. I'm doing one about, skill building. I'm doing something else about transitioning in your career, networking. So I have some workshops that are coming up every month. And then in January, I have a course that I'll be launching called the Career Compass to help you really find the true north in your career. So that's what's coming on the hopper for me. But if you go to my website, you can find about all that.
That's awesome. And ladies, like I said, so many of you are already in the Empower Society. If you have not, seriously, Carol is going to be coming in and doing an exclusive training for us.
I'm excited.
Live, of all things. So that's going to be supremely powerful. I am so grateful for having you. Thank you again for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I'm excited. This was such a powerful conversation. So thank you for indulging me, spending the time with us.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, that is it for this episode. And if you're ready to take things to the next level, I invite you to check out our free salary coaching Inner Circle Facebook group on, well, of course, Facebook. You just go ahead and search for Salary Coaching Inner Circle on your Facebook search bar, and it will surely show up. You'll get live access to me, the opportunity to engage with our super powerful guest speakers, and you'll get the support of hundreds of career-oriented, like-minded women just like you. So check it out, and also be sure to catch out next episode with more ways to help you know your worth, get your worth, and live out the career